Hello and welcome to another SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode I will be discussing the 2017 romantic comedy Home Again, starring Reese Witherspoon and as directed by Hallie Myers-Shire in her directorial debut. So, be warned, I may include a few spoilers for this one. There's not much to the film's plot, and so I may end up giving things away I shouldn't. In which case, please switch off now if you don't want to hear these potential spoilers. The film is produced by Nancy Meyers. Now, I don't often cite producers, nor do I often take much notice of them, to be fair. As for me, they're not really that relevant, or in fact, sometimes I suppose they could be all too relevant. More often than not, when a film has to resort to basically saying that it's produced by, it usually means that the film itself wasn't strong enough on its own accord. And usually in this case, it means that the film's most likely not going to be up to much. That's what I've found anyway. Often you see statements such as this and you know that the studio's clutching at straws. But in this instance, you can almost tell that she's had quite a bit of involvement and influence. As when all's said and done, as I've found out in the building of my review for this film, Hallie is actually Nancy Meyers' younger daughter. So, there you have it. And you can certainly tell in the directorial style in Home Again. So, the film introduces us to 40-year-old Alice Kinney, as played by Reese Witherspoon, who is the daughter of a prominent film director, John Kinney, who had sadly passed away some years prior. Recently separated from her husband, Austin, as played by Michael Sheen, Alice then moves back to her father's home in Los Angeles with her two daughters, Isabel and Rosie, as played by Lola Flannery and Eden Grace Redfield respectively. Basically looking to take stock of her life and perhaps start her own business in the process. On a night out with her friends, Alice encounters a group of young, well, in their mid-20s filmmakers, Harry, George and Teddy, as played by, let's get these names right, Pico Alexander, John Rudnitsky and Nat Wolff respectively, with whom they instantly hit it off, and after one thing leads to another, the whole group end up going back to Alice's house for an after party of sorts, well, where nothing happens. After a morning with her mother, as played by Candice Bergen, Alice reluctantly agrees to let the lads stay in the guest house while they get on their feet and get their movie made. However, a strong bond starts to form between the filmmakers, Alice and her children, and the guys actually become an integral part of Alice's life, and in Harry's case, even a brief romantic relationship ensues. As the relationships develop, it is apparent that the age gap becomes an issue, and Alice's husband, worried about the effect that the new men in her life will have on his family, flies from New York to Los Angeles to confront his wife and the guys to try and put their relationship back on track. There's a few hit and miss moments when things start to go pear-shaped between everybody in the group once Austin is back and on the scene, but perhaps not in the ways you would expect from a movie such as this. Ultimately, the whole group learn to get along, and we learn that family just isn't about those who are related to you. Showing also that you can be strong and independent as Reese Witherspoon's character develops throughout the film, whilst also at the same time coming together as a family unit and being there for one another, accepting help from those who love you, no matter what. So, the film does start with a rather lengthy intro about Alice's family history and her father's movie career, which, for me, only some of it seemed relevant whilst watching the film, and perhaps there may have been better ways to convey the message overall. I get that the filmmaking and Alice's history were prominent. It just seemed like quite a way to do things, really, but it's not awful. In fact, it pretty much sums up the mood of the whole film. The film is a little predictable in places and perhaps a bit slow overall. And as I insinuated earlier, it doesn't really do very much. But therein lies the point, I think. It's just a really nice movie. It doesn't seek to offend anybody. It doesn't seek to be outlandish or controversial in any way. And is simply a nice film about family, friends and relationships. It's a great feel-good movie, even when you think things are going to get bad, as they do in other films. And when you set out to dislike somebody as you think their intentions are dishonourable, or you would be expected to hate or be left reeling for some of the characters, this film never really goes there at all. It never really sets off in this direction. All the characters, in the end, come across as people who mean well. There's nothing at all sinister about this movie. Each of the characters you come to love in their own way, even when things go south or not as expected. The style and comedy of the film made it feel a little bit like it was going to be three young men and a lady, as opposed to, of course, Three Men and a Baby, the classic 1987 comedy. It reminded me quite a lot of that film, and it had that kind of feel to it, to be fair. Some of the acting did seem a little bit forced and awkward at times, but nonetheless, I think each actor did play their part quite well, and overall it was fairly enjoyable fare. There was also reference to the immaturity of the lads. Well, at 27-ish, which was at least the age cited for Harry in the film, I do question. Well, I remember when I was 27, yesterday, and remember being in a full-time job, engaged and mortgaged, basically up to the hilt. This for me just felt a little at odds, and I wonder if perhaps it might have worked better if they were closer to their early 20s, say 20, 23. I mean, 27 is nearly pushing 30. Perhaps 30 is the new 20, and if so, there's hope for me yet. So, overall, then Home Again is a film with a simple plot. It's not overly complicated and doesn't seek to offend anyone. There's not much thinking required, and so it's a great film if you've got a headache, and it's a great snuggle-up movie in my opinion. Even though it's slow, and perhaps even a bit mundane in its plot, it's just that nice it kind of compels you to watch it nonetheless. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do leave a like on this video if you have, and please do hit that subscribe button if you like what I'm doing on this channel. Feel free to leave a comment, by all means. But absolutely, hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you again. Goodbye.